Greetings. Welcome. I am Marina Ormes of Astrology Heals, and I am here with Alexandra Karacostas. And we are going to share a little bit today with you about astrology and the profession of astrology and what it takes to be an astrologer and some of the gifts of being in the astrology business, as well as some of the myths to be aware of. So I am super excited to welcome Alexandra. Alexandra Karacostas is a professional astrologer with decades of experience as a consultant. She offers practical wisdom and insight, helping people navigate their lives. She has been a student of astrology since 1975. She teaches and lectures nationally and abroad and serves an international clientele.
Thank you so much, Marina. It's great to be here with you today. It's my pleasure.
Lovely. So tell us how you got into astrology and what you love about it.
I got into astrology reluctantly. Astrology was something that I was always kind of interested in, but didn't really, hadn't like singled it out as just that thing that I was going to do. I was young. I was 17 when I first was really started studying it. And some guy that I was working at a fair, and some gentleman came up to me and asked me my sign, and I thought, oh brother. Um, and I gave it to him, and he did my chart. He was like in his 30s at the time. I was quite a bit younger, and this is like 50 years ago, almost actually. And he said, you're going to be an astrologer one day. And I said, like, I'm not really interested in becoming an astrologer. I was always interested all my life, ever since I was a little kid, in the bigger picture, the meaning of life, what connects us all. Um, I think from a very young age, I was always deeply spiritual, and I was always looking for that kind of magic potion that would reveal the secret to what it is to be connected and joyful and live life fully. And well, but I didn't think astrology was going to be it. And he said, "You're going to be an astrologer." So he started purchasing and showering me with books. And that's how it all started. And I started reading all these books. And it was more like a remembering instead of a learning. It's like I was like, oh, I know this. Oh, I know that. And that kind of started my journey. Yeah.
So
And here I am.
interesting. Here you are, and you must have loved it because you've dedicated many years of your life to it.
I I did love it. So my son, with my kids, I was always doing my oldest is almost 48. And, back then even, I was, looking at their charts, trying to understand. Of course, I've learned a lot. And my own, how I use astrology today is different than how I used it in the past. Just as we evolve and we grow older, however. But I if you want to know, what I love about astrology, and I can tell you that, yeah, what I love about astrology, I love that it's a language because that's what it is. It's a symbolic language to give us tools and to be able to articulate in shorthand, what actually is going on in the cosmos, but also in individual lives. Um, to be able to talk about certain qualities, characteristics, opportunities that are happening right now in our life, because there's always the pattern. So it's about reading these patterns, and these patterns and cycles, they are in sequence, and they also follow, um, you know, a lot of different philosophies, which I do, and cosmologies, which I do. And so what I love about it, it allows one to be able to articulate what's really going in on various levels. Um,
Yeah.
and and to be able, it's like to really cut through the chase. I mean, the way I do astrology, I can see, when I'm doing, I do pretty much I'm a human-based astrologer. I work a lot with people, not so much with mundane astrology, though I do look at it. I really am a people person, and my background was also in psychology. So that's really what I appreciate and enjoy. And through astrology, you can just like really look at a chart and look at the family dynamics, look at previous generations, look where that person's coming from, look at the lessons, just like that. Now, what a person does with that is up to individuals, but you can really see where the opportunities and where the pitfalls lie,
Yeah,
and their
I love
generation.
that. Yeah. And one of the things you just said that I wanted to pull out is how astrology describes what's already happening. So it gives us a language for the things we already experience, right? It's this is life. It's not that it is like some magical or mystical like thing that it helps us
Right.
tap into. It's really just a way of describing these patterns that help us understand what's going on that we maybe we don't normally think about it in terms of a pattern, or maybe we don't normally think of it in terms of, why we're different, what's the same about us, what's different about us. And when we have this language, it allows us to have those kinds of understandings and conversations.
Absolutely, Marina. And also, I think, uh, here in the West, it's a little bit different in this kind of like human-centered, we want to evolve and so forth. But in traditional cultures and societies all around the globe, where astrology has always been as well, they're very much more focused on what's going to happen on the external events. And of course, astrology we can talk about it in terms of how situations can manifest, but that's really not usually my most interesting avenue. What I'm really curious about is how we can, the opportunities for a particular type of experience internally, what the opportunities, what the openings are, what is presented to us, and not so much about the event oriented, what's going to happen, because what's going to happen is directly determined by our actions, and our actions are directly determined by our thoughts and our feelings and the inner workings of our being, which I think is where astrology can be most useful, at least the kind of astrology I like to practice. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And that's true. Like that's a good point because that's very similar to how I practice it here, and I talk to people about bringing astrology in for self-care and self-awareness, but certainly, there are many ways that astrology is used around the world, and it might have more of a external or predictive quality to look at timing and events, but yeah, I love this personal empowerment and awareness perspective.
Yeah. As I was thinking about, meeting with you today, and I was thinking about this a little bit earlier, and, just kind of pondering how, someone may have a very similar or even the same, almost the same, it's never quite exactly the same, particular progression or transit going on in their life, particular things going on, two or three people at the same time, and yet each person might experience this. It will manifest likely in similar qualities, but the details will be different depending on the individual and how we respond. Because just in science, quantum physics, it's not just what happens; it's how we respond to it that creates life as we know it.
Yeah.
So the astrology is very useful as a tool. It's not. You know, I don't think it's any kind of magic potion, but I think it's a wonderful tool. And I love being able to visit with my friends who are astrologers and to be able to say like five sentences, and it could have saved us paragraphs and paragraphs of words.
I love that. Yeah, so true. And yeah, so the ways that we can use this, and you mentioned transits and progressions, and these are all things that we work with. So what does it take to do astrology for a living? I know this is something that you teach about and you're very interested in, and
Yeah.
so talk to us a little bit about that.
Okay. If I think that if somebody, for me, I want to just kind of qualify this by saying, for me, I am a professional astrologer, have been for decades. But I've always had my hand in another pie or two, just because I'm that kind of person. I usually have several different things going on because it's who I am. But to become a professional astrologer, the one thing I can say for sure, it takes a lot of work. If somebody thinks they're going to take a class or two and become an astrologer, and there is some of that goes around, saying, oh, so the certification programs are everywhere right now, and I kind of have a beef with that a little bit, because what makes you a proficient astrologer is experience, and you cannot purchase experience. You have to go through it, and it takes time. So, one, in order to become not just a professional astrologer, but a good professional astrologer, you have to dedicate the time, the discipline, the study, practice. Things are a little bit different today with technology. Back when, instead of when I was, much younger, and what we would do is I would give a lot of talks, and now we still can, via the medias, do a lot of free talks, do a lot of free charts. Um, Offer things, be engaged. One of the most um, useful and um, very helpful ways for all concerned is to become involved in some kind of organization. Most people live in some part of the country where there is some astrology, maybe not in the same state, maybe in the same town, or maybe in the next state. It doesn't matter anymore. Get involved, volunteer, become part of the astrological community. And that's like how you begin the process. And then it's to do a lot of charts, figure out, first of all, figure out what you like. There are many paths in astrology, right? And there are many different kinds of astrologers we can become. So there is no one way. Figure out what you want and pursue that. And don't, and I think it's important to learn about a lot of different techniques, but don't ever imagine that you have to use all of the techniques. Just know that, they're like little tools in your toolbox, and you can like bring them out if you have to, but figure out what really speaks to you as an individual and follow that, pursue that with passion. And that is what it takes. And patience. Yeah.
I love that.
I
Yeah.
mean, I've got Saturn in the 10th house, so that's what it takes.
Indeed. Yeah. No, but I love that, especially the part about techniques and like I think that learning one technique or a few techniques and really integrating them and learning them deeply can be so powerful and so valuable to your clients. When you really feel comfortable and confident with a process or a technique that you're using, that is what is really ends up bringing the value and helps people. It helps them make those shifts that you're talking about.
Absolutely. It's like this saying that I just love, it doesn't matter how many holes you dig, how many, when you're digging for water, how many wells, it doesn't matter how many holes you dig to find water. It only matters how deep you go. So you don't have to punch 100 holes. You can punch two or three and see what happens. Like go deep,
Yeah.
you know. That's where the goods are. You got to go deep, and to practice, and to also listen to your clients. We all, I think many of us have an agenda. I certainly do. It's like I go in with ideas, but then it's like the bigger part of the consultation is about listening to our clients. Not, it's not about what we want to say. It's about how can we be helpful based on what they need. And sometimes what they need is, at least for me, it's like, whoa, this is not what I had in mind, but oh, I got to switch gears. So it's about, like you said, feeling comfortable enough with whatever you're using to be able to do that on the spot. Yeah.
Yeah. So with that said, I'm curious, like, what are some of your favorite techniques? Like, what have you really vibed
Mm.
with and spent a lot of time learning and
Well,
deep?
I always have my go-tos. I guess I have my go-tos, and because especially when I'm really busy, that's what I do, because it's like my bread and butter. So And I want, for whoever's listening to us, and I don't know what level everybody's at, but the most important thing is to learn the basics. So always look well into the natal chart because the natal chart is going to tell us pretty much everything we need to know. So know the basics. The tools I really like to use are returns. I use solar returns. I can do all kinds of returns, but pretty much always look at the solar return. Secondary progressions, I'll look at solar arcs and transits. Those are always a go-to. All the astrocartography, the locality, the different kinds of returns that there are, looking at, sometimes I'll look at perfections. I'll look at all kinds of things, depending on what is necessary or what the person is visiting with me about. But always looking at the return, or rather in this order: natal, regressions, secondary, glancing at the solar arc progressions, transits, and then the returns. And usually the return will echo whatever else is in the chart, but perhaps we'll give a little more detail. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. And so what kinds of things do people do with that information when you share it with them? Like, what kinds of ways does it help them tap into their own actions and, some of those things you were talking about?
Most of my clients today are repeat clients. Okay. So
Mhm.
obviously, and I've known for 20, 30 years. Okay. So how does it help them? Usually people will come to me, some new people, they have a particular question in mind. They have a particular piece that they want. Oftentimes it's a timing piece. Okay. I'm wanting to launch X, blah, blah, blah. I am wanting to move. I am wanting to do this or that. So it's about helping them uh, figure out ways to do that and the timing. Because astrology is what? The science of cycles and timing. That's what it is. And looking at all the cycles, kind of like trying to put them all together and see what they all are saying. So I think how it helps people is, like I said, most people, like 99% of them, will come with particular issues in mind. So it's about helping them kind of get an answer that is going to be feasible to a plan to to work with. Yeah,
Yeah,
timing wise. And,
yeah.
and recently, I've had quite a few people. Things kind of seem to go in phases. Lately it's just been a bunch of people that have wanted to do like relocation work. So the first thing I do before I even get into the relocation work is it's a good time to move. Maybe you want to move, but maybe the universe doesn't want you to move. Maybe it's not about moving. Maybe something else is going on that you don't like, and you think that geographical is going to fix you, but it doesn't, right?
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah. What are the deeper issues? And right.
right,
And
exactly.
maybe it can help you get some insight into your thinking and how you got there and yeah, I love that. So what is this even really the right timing for you, or is there something else going on that you're trying to work out, and is there another way to think about that?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. It's and I always like to I I like to try and present, my clients with, okay, this is what the universe, this is what's happening. Here are your options. Here are some potential consequences with your choices. What's really going on though? What is it that you really want? You
Mhm.
know,
Mhm.
right? Because sometimes people say, well, how many times do we get people who want a relationship? When am I going to find the right person? Oh, it's like I have to be honest here. I really would love to tell you that I have like a huge success rate with this, and I really don't. Relationships, humans are tricky. We are tricky, and this is like really kind of God's work, not my work. God or whatever that thing is out there. And there are certain key pieces that show up with relationship when it happens. And it's a lot easier to see it, retrospectively than it is to predict. There are, though, some really great little pointers that can indicate that. But sometimes there's something else going on. It's not the relationships that somebody is really eager for, or they may still be eager for that, but it's also kind of wanting to avoid unconsciously. other pieces that are happening that really want attention. So it's about talking about that because, it's in the chart, we can see the unconscious much more clearly. How many times have we had people come to us to me and say, wow, one session with you or two sessions with you, it's been a year and a half in therapy. And all of a sudden,
Right.
we're there, so
Yep.
um, yeah, I don't know if
Yeah.
that answered the question. I think it did. Yeah.
Yeah, no, actually that was really really valuable, I think. And it makes me think um y- yeah, that I think a lot of times it's about looking deeper at the patterns. So like what is the soul learning? What is the soul needing right now? And maybe right now you're coming to me because you're looking for a relationship or you're feeling this need in your life, whatever it is. And what we can
Mhm.
look at is how your soul is striving for this growth or this um, sense of becoming something you've always wanted to become. And so we can provide insights. And I think you and I have a little bit different approaches in how we do that, but I think our intentions to be helpful to the person are very similar. So
Yeah.
I work more with the lunar nodes and looking at, well, here are some things I can suggest that are how you could be thinking about this or how you could notice where you have old patterns and what the options or the possibilities are that might be more helpful to you going forward or trying to create the things that you want. And so, right, trying to step into who you need to be to attract that love interest that is what you're wanting, but really it's about
Mhm.
who you're becoming.
Yeah. Well said.
Yeah.
Well said. And along those lines, sometimes people will say, well, is this good or is this bad? I don't know. But along this, like, I don't know, because sometimes things are difficult for sure. And sometimes people will want, we all by nature, we don't want to be in pain. Who wants to but sometimes that's what's on the menu. That's what's on the menu. It's a different, it's growing pains. It's you name it, it's like it's not like I can tell someone how to like not be in pain. All I can do is perhaps say that this is what wants to happen and that, this too shall pass, but get the most of it you can out of it right now because whatever we don't resolve will always come back because everything wants resolution. Everything wants to, when we look at our chart, everything wants to come alive. And in the process of becoming alive, we go through difficulties.
Yeah,
So,
for sure, right. And is it about numbing that pain or is it about something that you need to feel or move through? And different times might have different answers, but right, it's about working together with the client to share what you're seeing in the chart and then also invite them to uh, notice how that resonates for them.
you know, absolutely, Marina. And, you know, sometimes it's so nice if someone can just, tell us what to do or give us a solution to something, Sometimes, but a lot of times we know the answer. And I think one of our gifts and duties as astrologers is to help people feel confident and about who they are so they can trust themselves so they really come up with their own answers because the answers are within. So it's like, how do we help people kind of see that path so
Yeah.
they can really connect with their own inner wisdom?
Yeah. Yeah, and I
Because
love that you're saying this, and I want to call out also that as as someone who might be looking for an astrology reading or an astrologer to work with, these are the kinds of things you want to look for. Is this someone who's going to like give me simple answers, or is this someone who's going to help me understand and connect with my own wisdom? And I think that's
right,
important to recognize in an astrologer is do they, and like you were saying in the beginning, it takes experience to get there. To be able to do that is definitely not something you can learn from a book.
Right. That's right. Yeah. And I know I'm always learning and I always want to keep learning. And today there's so much out there. We're so, people who are learning astrology are really just blessed with some really wonderful information out there. And worst, with some real nonsense out there. So it's really important to be able to um, give as much good information as we can. Right. Be a little bit louder. Turn up the volume on the good stuff. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
there you go. Yes, I love that.
And that,
Um,
well,
yeah.
to tell people need to know that there is no one way that's right. Everybody finds their own path. It's just not, you don't need to do astrology like your neighbor or your teacher. It's about finding what works for you. Yeah.
Well said. Yeah, and have you, I know you mentioned that you wanted to talk about myths. Myths that are there about astrology. Have you mentioned that already, or?
No, we're not well, you know, the okay, I don't, some of the myths that seem to be circulating is that you can, so this is what I hear. So you can study, get certified, hang your shingle in a sense, and then go out there and you'll get rich. That's like such a myth. That is just pure nonsense. I just don't know how that, it just doesn't work that way. I don't think. About their getting rich part. You can hang your shingle, you can start doing a lot of astrology, but just because you're ready, it doesn't mean that you need a lot. You need to have a business plan. You need to know, being an astrologer, being self-employed is more than just being an astrologer. You need to know kind of how you're going to set yourself up, what's realistic. So these are some of the myths that kind of are associated with just the practical aspects. How am I going to make this thing work? How am I going to pay my bills?
Yeah, it's
Right?
really a business.
It's a business. That's right. So people also need to take some of that, need to take a lot of that into account. There are costs involved with having a website, having a YouTube channel. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, yeah, and that the myth, another myth, and I don't know if it's just I think it's just prevalent. This myth that if we, will find the right answer and then all will be well. That's a myth. All will only be well if there is such a thing within ourselves. When we get to that place when we can accept what's going on,
Mm.
that's when all will might be well, right? But it's not about finding a certain way of doing something. And then it's like, eureka, I found it. Now happiness forever. Yeah.
Well,
At least
astrology
I
is its own kind of journey, right? I mean, just like our clients are moving through the things they're moving through as an astrologer, you're figuring out what it means to be you, and that's part of what your chart spells
exactly.
out. Yeah.
Exactly. But I've got to say, for those who want to be astrologers, there's a wonderful astrological community out there. It's some of my best friends I've met professionally, through working in groups. And, it's because there's a real connection with, being able to really see people quickly and clearly, potentially. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, having
It's
that
a
sense of
gift we
community.
have. We're really blessed to be able to be involved in this work. It's it's spiritual, it's practical, it's um, deeply rewarding. Deeply rewarding.
I have had some of the highest level conversations with other people who know astrology and other astrologers, just the wholeness of it. Like you're saying, the spirituality, the practical approach, the scientific mind, the part of us that needs to understand, applying versus separating in an aspect or what, there's a lot of
Right.
technical stuff to it. And And it's also nothing if it's not heart centered. So
Yeah, we got that right.
yeah.
And also, even though we have all this technology, I think it's real important for everybody to take at least one class and learn how to do chart by hand. Why? Because it's important to understand what we're looking at, what we're doing. It's not just, and you don't have to, I don't do charts by hand, but it's important to know how we come up with what we come up with. And of course, nowadays you can take astronomy for astrologers too, which is something that I love and I want to keep taking because that's not always what I've done, but I think it's very valuable, very useful. Yeah, to be able to do these things by hand, to understand what it is that our association, our connection to the cosmos. And, we were talking earlier, I use asteroids. Do I use them always extensively? No, sometimes more than others. But I do look at there's so much to look at, right? There is the trans-Neptunians, there is the centaurs, there is, oh my God. And so
Right.
people really just needs to, learn a little bit about everything, but then figure out what really speaks to you because nothing, all of this is not going to speak to everybody. There's the Hellenistic stuff, which is really in vogue these days, and some of the, real traditional. It's got to find what works for you, for us individual. Yeah. And then feel good about it. Yeah.
Right. Would
Yeah.
you be willing to sort of break down a little bit for people like um, the psychological astrology? What's the difference between that and Hellenistic and modern? And I think some people just don't understand what these terms mean. Eh, Just a real general.
Sure. Okay. So, human centered, which is what I do, kind of comes out of the Mujer perspective, person-centered astrology. It's about the it really is about the individual and our own uh, blossoming and exploration of the inner self. Okay, and so we use astrology and the symbols to connect to aspects of our inner self and that personal growth. When we're looking at traditional, well, we're looking at a lot more fixed stars. We're looking at other points and parts that, in ancient Babylonia, Arabic would use. So there are, and that also comes with a little bit more, and the Hellenistic too. They use, all these other terms that I don't know how they are. I mean, when people do it, I think it's like marvelous. I don't know how to do it. Um, they're releasing and all these different connections. And again, my understanding is that these also are a little bit more event oriented. They say, well, this is what will happen. So it's a bit more external, okay? Um, when we're looking at Vedic astrology, again, usually the Vedic, the Jyotish, um, Eastern astrology will not even use the outer planets, right? We just use the visible planets with the eye. And this too is very much event oriented. This is what will happen. This is your destiny, and this is what you can do to meet your destiny in the best possible fashion. But it is much more fixed. Okay, there are not as many possibilities because, and to some degree, we are sort of trapped by our fate in a way. But with tradition, with a Vedic, it, it's much more less flexible. It's less flexible, I think.
Yeah.
Um, then what we have, gosh, we have the Hellenistic, we have the mundane, which is all about the world events, right? What's happening politically um, all across the planet, uh, socioeconomically, and so forth. Very interesting. And there are many different ways, again, to approach that. A lot of traditional people use that type of astrology for mundane, forecasting mundane events, traditional astrology. Um, God, there are many more that are slipping my mind, but I mean, those are a few that
Yeah.
people will hear of. Yeah. The
Yeah, thank you.
zodiacal release, which is part of the Hellenistic tradition, and I have friends who practice it, are just amazing. I don't know how to do it other than their Uranian astrology, which they use, these trans-Neptunian points, mathematical points out there. Fascinating. Really works. I don't know, really. I've tried to, I get excited, I do it, and then
Yeah.
I do it for a minute, and then I get it, and then I forget it because I don't use it all the time. Yeah,
Yeah. Right.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's very helpful. And I didn't give you much heads up on that question. So thank you I think that was
Yeah.
really helpful, actually. And again, like if you're going to an astrologer, it's really helpful to know what some of these things are to maybe, screen your astrologer ahead of time. Like, here's what I'm looking for. Is this something you can help me with? And is this something you do? And just recognize that there are different approaches and perspectives.
Exactly. When you're shopping around for an astrologer, it's great to look at their biographical data, look at their website or whatever information they have to see what kind of astrology they practice. And also, I think it's good to remind your viewers that there are astrologers who are excellent with doing consulting work and working with other people. There are astrologers who just love to do research, just love to write, just love to lecture. I mean, there's all kinds, and you don't have to feel like you're a failure if you're not successful at all of them. See what works for you, and stick with it. And mess around with everything else if you want, but don't ever think you're a failure because you can't do it all.
That's good life advice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the same thing people ask me, well, what house system do you use? There are many house systems, when we're doing a stroke. Find one that works for you. For the most part, they'll all work. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. So we kind of covered what are some of the ways professional astrologers might make a living besides the way we might think of, which is sitting down and doing readings. So anything else to add to that?
Well, you know, writing books is fantastic because it helps you really grow as you write. And you know this because you write books, you are an author, a
Yeah.
really good one, and
Oh,
you have
thank
published
you.
some very helpful, excellent material. But that's not necessarily a way to become rich, right? I mean, that's not a way to get rich, but it is a way to get speaking slots, which is can get you more clients, can get you more people, and that's the way to do it. I mean, the wealthiest people I know in astrology, and some of them are my friends, are people who've done financial astrology. But the reason they're doing financial astrology is because they've always been interested in business, and they've probably have somewhat of a business background. So, and they were on that trajectory before they became wealthy astrologers. They were probably kind of wealthy, whatever else they were before
Right.
they became astrologers too. So, I think, like that old adage, you just got to love what you do and the money, trust that the money will come. But if you want to get money, if this is like your goal, if you want to just get rich, this is probably, of all the professions out there, I would not say, oh, go be an astrologer and you'll meet that goal, quickly.
Yeah.
Probably not.
Yeah. No, I know for me, and I'm sure for you too, it's done as a labor of love. I mean, it's just something that is fun and inspirational, and it feels good helping people and just being able to share information that's useful.
But something that I love to do is, I lead tours, right? And I do retreats. And I love that. I love working with small groups and I love going to different places. I used to also be in the travel business. Travel's in my blood, my gypsy blood. And so I've been able to kind of combine these two. And it's just been really fun. I can't say that it's super lucrative, but it's a wonderful way to be able to, you know, pay myself while doing what I love and sharing that with other people. And they just absolutely love it. So just, got to find things that we love and share that and share them, whatever that might be. Yeah. I wish there
Yeah.
was magic bullets out there. I really do wish that, Marina, because I'm always up for a magic bullet.
So, what do you think about the future of astrology? Do you think this is going to become more mainstream? What are your thoughts on that?
Totally, it's becoming more mainstream. I mean, it's coming back. I mean, astrology and astronomy once upon a time were one and the same, and they were, advisors. Astronomers were the advisors to the kings. I think and not that they haven't been in the last number of, couple centuries, but with the split, um, and I think of Christianity had a lot to do. This is like evil, dark witch work. We're beyond that, and I do think that there is a real future for alternative education and having this be much more mainstream. Absolutely, yeah. The astrology and other aspects of the health profession, whether it be homeopathy and alternative medicine, and yeah, absolutely.
There's
Dream work, healing work. I mean, there's so much. Yeah.
right, right, and really a need for that. I mean, yeah, as we realize that we each of us has a role in our own healing and to find ways to be empowered within that and to find some sense of direction as we um, really strive to be more whole, right? So it's not just physical healing, but it's body, mind, emotion, and spirit, and all how all of those things interact with one another, and you can't have one without the others. So yeah, astrology to me is really a language that can bring that wholeness into something practical that we can act on. And that you mentioned in the beginning about how important action is, and I think we have the same perspective of that. There's a relationship with the universe, and so what we're doing is getting some response from the universe, and then we can respond to that, and it's kind of a dance.
Exactly. It's a dance. And, as astrologers, we can sort of try to read those steps and that movement and to be able to see what step might be most useful next, the right step perhaps to take. Yeah. And and I want to say that just because the astrology, we can look at somebody, we can look at our own charts, we can look at our clients' charts, we can talk till we're blue in the face, but it's very, unless we are willing to take those steps that the universe is suggesting, nothing's going to change. People will often say to me, "Well, when is this going to change?" Well, when you're ready to change it, and some times are more it's more ripe than other times, but there's so much magic in the universe, so much magic, but we need to participate. We're part of
Yeah.
the action here.
Uh, we do need to participate in the magic and see
you
ourselves
know like
as active.
well,
Yeah.
a lot of times people will say, when will this end? When will this well, that's kind of easy. You can say, I can see this come sort of, you know ending about such and such a time, or beginning, or whatever. But the idea is like, how do we make the most of it while it's happening, even if we don't like it? I mean, there's stuff going on in my life right now I'm not all that thrilled with, but it's like, how do I go deeper with it and really try to get what I can out of it so
So
I can
yeah,
pass it on, right? Pass it on.
yeah, right. Sometimes in those places of discomfort, we really maybe we're being asked to be quiet or to do something differently or to think about something differently. And so, right, it's not just about getting through that time. It's about, like you say, making the most of it and making the most of what's right in front of you.
And, and I think a very vital piece is, reframing. We're all stuck in our heads. We're all stuck in how we see things. It's wonderful to have someone with some expertise to be able to reframe, use different words, paint for us a different sort of picture of what's going on, perhaps that we can see things slightly through a different angle because it's easy to get stuck,
Yeah.
no matter how flexible we think we are or brilliant we think we are. It's easy
Yeah,
to get stuck.
beautiful because that it's a spectrum, right? Like whatever is showing up in our chart, um we could align with the lowest vibration of possibility and manifest the
Right.
most uncomfortable dimensions of it, or we could reframe and shift into what are the possibilities here that are maybe harder to see but are really really gifts when I recognize them as those gifts.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I mean, like I said, we're so lucky that we get to engage in this kind of incredibly meaningful work, you know.
Yeah.
And I think it's really exciting that so many young, especially young people are, really interested in astrology and, want to do something with this. And
Yeah.
I
So
think it's awesome.
any final words of advice for someone who's just starting out an astrology business or thinking of an astrology business? Where to start, how to think about it?
Okay, well, my angle would be, network, work with other people. Being an astrologer can be a very isolating type of experience because we work alone for the most part. So network with other people, um, volunteer, do as many charts as you can, charge for your work. Don't give things free. Don't be ridiculous with the fees that you charge, but don't. This is we're valuable. We're giving valuable information. Network, work, engage. The more you practice, everything will grow,
I love that.
and including your practice. Yeah.
Beautiful. Good.
I
Very
think that's it. There's no magic here. Work, 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 and have fun. If you're not having fun, you better find something else to do. You've got to have fun at least three-quarters of the time. You're not going to have fun all the time, but the majority of the time, you got to be enjoying what you're doing. Yeah.
I love that. That's awesome. Oh my goodness. Well, this has been just such a rich conversation. I'm so grateful to you. And would you share how people can reach you and find out more about your tours and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so my website is wisdomastrology.com. You can also just put in my name in Google me and stuff will come up. My website is getting updated as we speak, so just wait a day or two while my web gal updates it. But that's how you get a hold of me, and it's easy. And my number's on there. I welcome people to email me. They can text me. If they have questions, they can certainly reach out. I'm, I'm here and
Awesome.
love to help.
Yeah.
All right. So,
Thank
Marina, thank you so much. This is wonderful. I really appreciate your time. And
Well,
this is
thank
great.
you. Really an honor. All right. Well, thanks everyone. And I'm again Marina Ormes of astrologyheals.com. And thanks for being here and subscribing to this YouTube channel. We appreciate you. All right. We'll see you next time.